So I'm here at stand 3 of the Crawford Town Forest. I'm closer to the Mill Street side of stand 3, so the northern part of the town forest here. And I'm standing in the center of what will be the 2021 summer timber sale we're doing out here. This timber sale is focused on removing the poor quality pine that are throughout this stand. This pine is off-site and is not doing well.
There are three issues affecting the health and vigor of most of the pine in stand 3. The most noticeable health issue is the white pine weevil damage found on many of the pine. This damage happened decades ago when the trees were much smaller. An insect called white pine weevil laid its eggs around the terminal leader of the pine. Once the eggs hatched, the larval tunneled towards the center of the leader, feeding. This tunneling eventually girdled the main leader, killing it. The response of an affected tree was to replace its leader with one or multiple lateral stems from the previous year's growth. This feeding from the weevil can continue for many years as the tree matures. The killing and replacing of the leader can lead to an affected tree having a bush-like appearance. This is what happened to most of the white pine trees in stand 3.
And a tree with multiple leaders like the one behind me is really not worth much of anything. It's really just will be a chip tree, a pulp tree. It's not straight, it won't make any boards. High densities and white pine needlecast are affecting most of the white pine in stand 3 as well. White pine needlecast is a fungal pathogen caused by 3 different fungi. The fungus affects the second-year needles of pine, which turns the needles brown in June. These needles are then dropped. After multiple years of a tree being impacted by needlecast, a white pine tree is only left with one set of needles. A healthy white pine tree should have 3 years worth of needles. The lack of needles to photosynthesize decreases the growth and vigor of the trees being affected. In addition to the pathogens affecting the pine trees, these pines are also off-site. And what that means is the soils in stand 3 are not conducive to growing white pine. White pine do best in sandy, well-drained soils. The soils in stand 3 are much better at growing hardwood trees. The soils found throughout most of stand 3 are actually a continuation of the soils found in the beautiful northern hardwood stand in the central part of Crawford. The reason these white pine trees are here is because most of stand 3 was open and used for agricultural uses. These agricultural fields were abandoned. White pine do a great job at getting established on old pastures. Hardwoods, on the other hand, can struggle at getting established on land once used for agricultural uses. Throughout most of stand 3, the understory is full of hardwood regeneration, the composition of which is very similar to what is found in the central hardwood stand. The hardwood tree should do great on the soils found in stand 3 after the white pine are removed. On top of the weeveling that's happening here, on top of it being an off-site for pine, and it being very dense, they're also being affected by pathogens. So they have very weak crowns, and I'm pretty positive that these pine will succumb to the poor growing conditions and the white pine needlecast here shortly on their own. And so what we're trying to do is speed that process up to get it into a more natural state of hardwood forest quicker by removing as much pine as we can during this timber sale. This part of stand 3 has a lot of trees that look a lot like this one over my shoulder. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the pine we can get to here. And what we hope to have happen, and what I'm pretty positive will happen, is this will regenerate into a nice hardwood stand. A lot of this area already has nice regeneration of hardwood established. And so what we're hoping to do is to try to disturb as little of that as possible by taking the overstory of white pine off. And that's the goal throughout stand 3. This lower section of stand 3 has some of the poor quality stems. The further up the hill you get, there's a few more straighter trees that will sell for sawlogs, but the majority of what's being removed are poor quality trees like this. Another goal here for this timber sale is to create and enhance the trail system that's here at Crawford. Currently there's a few trails here or there, and one main trail that comes out from the town offices and will go to the height of land. On the Mill Street side, there's some not very well managed or established trails here. What to do is cut in some more trails for logging and then close those trails out in a way that they can be used for hiking and recreation going forward, and they'll connect to the other trails on the other side of the forest. And in doing that, we'll have a more robust trail system here that'll be more open and more accessible to the public.